I burned every bridge with my family. Then my dad called after 19 years and said I was in real danger. Hi, I'm Marcus, 32, and 3 months ago I burned every bridge I ever walked across. On purpose. I was sitting in my new apartment, clean, minimalist, one of those buildings with exposed brick walls that make people think you have your life together, when I got a call from a number I hadn't seen in years. It was my dad. Let me pause right here and give you some backstory. My dad left when I was 13. Just packed up, disappeared into a haze of divorce papers and bad credit. For years, it was just me and my mom. And then, when Mom started pulling night shifts and living in survival mode, it was me and Savannah, my older sister, acting like the adult in the house, whether she wanted to or not. My Aunt Elena was always around too, loud and opinionated. And my older brother Tobias floated in and out like the family's unofficial accountant/ghost. Grandma Janet was the one constant, mostly quiet, mostly sick, mostly ignored until somebody needed something. And yes, that's Savannah, the one who called me a freeloader and threw me a farewell barbecue with hot dogs and a "Don't Come Back" banner. Family traditions, right? So imagine my surprise when he called me, after 19 years of nothing. I didn't answer, obviously, but he left a voicemail. "Hey, Marcus, I know it's been a while. I saw some stuff online, from Alina's Facebook, the banner, the party, and I thought maybe it was time we talked." I didn't even know my aunt posted that party online. The image of me, blurry in the background, walking to my car with a cardboard box while Elena pointed and laughed, had become a meme in some obscure subreddit. When you get fired from your own family. I laughed the first time I saw it, laughed until I choked. But the fact that he saw it, that made something shift. I thought I'd buried my past with those mortgage statements and quiet acts of vengeance, but here it was, clawing back up, wearing my dad's voice like a mask. I called him back the next day. He answered on the second ring. "Marcus?" I didn't say anything at first, just listened to the hum on the line. There was a long pause, then he said something I didn't expect. "I should have come back sooner." I almost hung up right there, not out of anger, out of instinct, like a dog that's been kicked too many times and finally bites back before thinking. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "You saw the banner?" He sighed. "Yeah." "And now you want to talk?" "I want to explain." "Explain why you vanished for almost 2 decades? Why you let them do what they did to me?" "No. I want to explain why I'm here, now, and why I think you might be in danger." Danger. Not the word I expected. I laughed. "What, emotional danger? Because I already got the full trauma package, thanks." "No," he said. "Real danger. Legal, financial. People are digging into you, into your accounts, your records. I think someone's trying to ruin you." I stood completely still. Then I said, "I think you'd better start explaining." He said, "Meet me tomorrow. We can't do this on the phone." I told him no. He told me I didn't have a choice. Then he hung up. And just like that, my clean new life cracked open again, and what was hiding underneath wasn't done with me yet. We met at a diner just off the freeway, neutral territory, the kind of place where no one asks questions and the coffee tastes like hot regret. He looked older than I remembered, obviously. Thinner too. Same leather jacket from 20 years ago, but now it sagged on his frame like it remembered all the weight he used to carry. He waved over without smiling. I sat down across from him and said, "You've got 5 minutes." He didn't argue, just pulled a manila folder out of a messenger bag that was way too clean for a guy who claimed to be living off disability checks in Nevada. He slid the folder across the table. I opened it. Printouts, screenshots, some old, some recent.
"Your mom's bank statements," he said. "Somebody tried to pull a full account history, not just balances, transactions, years of them." "Savannah?" I asked. He shook his head. "That would have made sense. This didn't come from inside the family. It came from a private investigator." I raised an eyebrow. "You're saying someone hired a PI to look into me?" He nodded. "And not just you. Your mom, Elena, Tobias, all of them, even Janet." I flipped through the pages. Some of it was old. Utility bills, car payments, even employment records. But then I hit a page that made my chest tighten. A screenshot of my account, The exact spreadsheet I kept for years, the one detailing every payment, every hidden support structure I'd quietly built. The one I thought was safely stored on my encrypted hard drive. How the hell did they get this? He looked me dead in the eye. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I stared at the spreadsheet. My notes, my color-coded tabs, stuff I'd never shared, never uploaded to the cloud. Someone's inside your system, he said. Maybe they hacked you. Maybe they got your login. Doesn't matter how. What matters is they've been watching you for a while. I swallowed hard. Why? Because you cost someone a lot of money when you pulled the plug, he said, and now someone wants to make sure you don't do it again. I leaned back in the booth, blood buzzing in my ears. He went on. I came back because someone made me an offer, said if I helped dig into your life, I could clear some debts. I said no, but it told me something. What? He lowered his voice. You think this is about your mom, your revenge, your family. It's not. He tapped the folder. Someone else was using that setup. The payments, the subsidies, the paper trail you left behind. I felt my stomach drop. Using it how? He looked around the diner, then leaned in. Money laundering, he said. Your little side operation, someone piggybacked on it, and now that you shut it down, they're exposed. I sat in stunned silence. Then I said, You've got to be kidding me. He just stared at me. I wasn't the only one pulling strings behind the curtain. I'd built the structure, but apparently someone else had turned it into a front, and now they were coming for me. I left the diner in a daze, folder clutched under one arm like it was radioactive. I didn't say goodbye. My dad didn't stop me. He just sat there, drinking his black coffee and watching me go like he'd already played his part. Back at my apartment, I dumped the folder onto the kitchen table and stared at it like it might start smoking. Money laundering? How? I hadn't even used my name for most of those payments. The mortgage transfers went through a friend's nonprofit shell. Elena's rent help was cash-based. Janet's pharmacy discounts came through a looped prescription program tied to a fake caregiver profile I'd built under an alias. All of it was legal-ish, gray zone, creative accounting, not criminal intent. But apparently someone piggybacked the whole system. I powered up my workstation and dove in. Logs first. Remote access? Nothing obvious. My encryption was still solid. VPN was active. Local drive integrity checks clean. But when I pulled up the backup logs, the automated ones my system ran in the background to a locked archive volume, something was off. There was a sync 2 weeks ago I hadn't triggered. Not a full mirror, not a bulk transfer, just a small packet, one file, the file. I opened the event trace and tracked the IP. Partial. It bounced through a VPN farm in Prague, then Canada, then back through a residential server in Georgia. Clever. Not clever enough to be invisible, not if you already knew what file to look for and when it moved. I copied the routing details, saved the chain. Then, I opened the spreadsheet they'd taken. They'd made edits. It wasn't just my ledger anymore. It was embellished.
My payments looked inflated. Notes added in red text. Third-party disbursement channel established. Vendor-level transfer complete. Nonprofit receipt logged. Fake terms, but they looked real enough. I recognized the pattern. Someone had padded the numbers to make it look like I was washing money through those payments, like I was running a funnel, pretending to help my family while moving cash through multiple aliases. My hands went cold. This wasn't someone piggybacking. This was framing. They were building a paper trail, and I'd already given them the foundation. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding, staring at the screen. There was a knock at my door. I didn't move. Another knock, louder. I grabbed my phone, checked the hallway camera. It was Savannah. Again. But this time she wasn't alone. A man stood next to her. Early 50s, clean cut, suit jacket. Not family, not a friend. She looked pissed. He looked calm. Then he pulled a badge out of his jacket and showed it to the camera. Federal. I froze. Savannah looked up into the lens and mouthed, "You need to talk to him." I killed the feed, grabbed the folder, shoved my laptop into a backpack, and hit the back stairwell. Whatever this was, it had just become a lot bigger than family drama. I didn't go back to my apartment that night. I grabbed a room at a roadside motel out near the industrial park, one of those places with vibrating beds and a clerk who doesn't ask questions as long as you pay in cash. I left my phone in the microwave, powered off just in case, and then I sat in the dark with the folder spread out across the bed, trying to piece it all together. I wasn't stupid. I knew I'd been walking a line these past few years. Fake programs, side accounts, proxy payments. It was a house of cards built on technicalities, but that was the point. I followed the line. Bent it, sure, never broke it. Until now. Now someone had taken my accounting and twisted it into a story, a criminal enterprise, one where I was the mastermind, laundering money through the people who hated me the most. And the best part? It was believable, because who would assume I was the one helping them? Nobody. And who would believe me if I said I was set up? Also nobody. It was perfect. And Savannah showing up with a Fed in tow? That was either desperation or betrayal. I didn't know which one was worse. I cracked my laptop open and started digging deeper, not just through my own backups, but through the nonprofit shell I'd used as a payment proxy. It was called Blue Birch Solutions, registered under my friend's name. He owed me a favor, long story involving a bad breakup, a crashed server, and a very understanding IT department. But the second I logged into the admin portal, I felt my stomach drop. The account was active. It shouldn't have been. I shut it down 2 months ago. Or I thought I did, at least on my end. But the corporate registry and the banking rails, those can keep active alive if someone still has keys. Now it had 3 new vendor profiles, all approved, all with names eerily close to companies I'd used in the past. Greenleaf Services, North Star Utility Brokers, Hollow Pine Foundation. Shells, all shells. I pulled the banking data. Money was moving. Not a lot, just enough to fly under most alarms. And all of it started after I stopped my payments, after the party. Whoever was doing this had waited for me to leave, then moved in and started using my system to run their own game, quietly, sloppily, but just slick enough to pin it on me if anything went wrong. And now it was going wrong. I shut the laptop and paced the room. Savannah didn't know any of this. She barely knew how to use her banking app. But someone did. Someone in the family who had a front row seat to my systems, to the way I moved money, managed accounts, hid things in plain sight. Tobias.
He was the only one who ever asked questions about how I made things work. The only one who once joked, "You should teach me how you hide all those payments. Sounds like magic." I thought he was just being nosy. But now, it didn't feel like a joke anymore. I sat back down, opened a fresh document, and wrote 2 words at the top. Primary suspect, Tobias. The next morning, I parked across the street from Tobias's house in a dented rental Corolla that smelled like onions and regret. He lived in one of those suburban ranch-style places with a faded American flag out front and 2 trucks in the driveway, one rusted, one spotless. His wife had left 5 years ago, but the lawn was still mowed every Saturday like clockwork. I watched the house for an hour. Nothing. Then a car pulled up. Not a family member, not a friend. A clean black sedan. Government plates. My jaw clenched. The Fed from yesterday stepped out. Same suit, same calm face. He knocked twice. Tobias opened the door fast, like he'd been waiting, and then he let him in. No hesitation, no surprise. I snapped a photo with my burner, time-stamped it, and drove off. If Tobias was working with federal investigators, that meant either he was cooperating or protecting himself. Either way, I had to move fast. I drove 2 hours to meet the one person who might help me untangle this, Jace. We hadn't talked in a while, but he owed me. Years ago, I'd helped him wipe his online footprint after a bad split with a crypto startup. He'd promised to return the favor one day. Today was that day. Jace worked out of a converted storage unit behind a bowling alley. He looked like a raccoon that had evolved into a man, and his idea of professional attire was a band tee and flip-flops. "Marcus," he said, squinting into the sunlight, "I thought you died or joined a cult." "Worse," I said, holding up the folder. "I got family involved." He winced. "Yikes." I handed over the documents, gave him a rundown of everything. The payments, the edits, the phantom transactions, the possible laundering, the Fed at my door, the Tobias theory. Jace didn't ask many questions, just nodded, typed, clicked. He moved like his hands were independent contractors on a tight deadline. "Okay," he said finally. "Here's the good news. They're not pros. They're clumsy. I found 4 digital fingerprints on your spreadsheet, 3 modifications from 1 location in-state and 1 outside. Not perfect attribution, but consistent enough to smell like the same hands." He rotated the screen toward me. A set of coordinates. "Who's in Vermont?" I blinked. "Vermont?" He nodded. "That's where the main hop lands. Small business Wi-Fi, registered to, get this, Pine Hollow Restoration Group." My stomach turned. That's one of the shell names they used. "Yep, but get this, it's real now. Someone registered it. Website, tax ID, everything. Like they're building a legit front on top of your fake foundation." "So they're laundering through something I built by accident?" Jace grinned. "Built by accident very well, apparently." "And Tobias?" Jace pulled up a separate window. Surveillance footage. "Security cam from a storage unit lot. 2 weeks ago, 3 a.m. Guess who was moving boxes into Unit 14B? Tobias, with a dolly full of what looked like old routers, file boxes, and a laptop bag." Jace zoomed in on the box label. It said, "Blue Birch Archives." He looked at me. "They're building a paper trail, physical evidence, making it look like you've been operating this whole thing from day one. So when it collapses," I said quietly, "it collapses on me." "Exactly." I leaned back, brain spinning. Savannah, Elena, Janet, they weren't just broke and bitter. They were pawns, and the person playing the board was about to lose his queen. Because if Tobias wanted a frame job, I was going to give him a frame he couldn't wriggle out of. I got back to the motel just before midnight. My burner phone buzzed the second I walked in. New voicemail, blocked number. I played it on speaker, half expecting Savannah's voice again. But it wasn't Savannah. It was Tobias. His voice was calm, too calm. "Marcus," he said, "I don't know what you think you're doing, but I'm going to give you one chance to stop. You've got no idea what you've walked into. You were just supposed to leave. That's all anyone wanted. You could have walked away clean. Now you've made it messy. Don't be stupid. Think about your future." He hung up. No threats, no yelling, just quiet confidence, like someone who'd already spoken to a federal agent and walked away smiling. I sat on the edge of the bed, breathing through the anger. He played it smart. Let Savannah take the heat. Let Elena scream. Let Janet guilt trip. He sat in the background, unbothered, playing the long game. And now he was the only one still standing with both feet dry while the others drowned. Except now I had Jace, and Jace had ideas. "Here's what we do," Jace said the next morning over greasy diner eggs. "We're going to reverse engineer the whole op. Build a fake whistleblower report with everything we've dug up. Tobias's storage unit, the Vermont Shell Company, the IP traces, the altered spreadsheets, the setup. Package it, encrypt it, and send it anonymously to the feds." "That won't stop them from coming after me," I said. "No," he said, "but it muddies the water. Right now, you're the main thread. You give them a new one, a louder one, and suddenly they've got 2 stories, one with receipts." He sipped his coffee. "Let Tobias explain his way out of that." I nodded slowly. "And Savannah?" I asked. Jace gave a one-shoulder shrug. "She's noise. She doesn't understand enough to be dangerous. Keep ignoring her." "And the investigator?" "That guy? He's just a low-tier contractor. Probably got handed a file and a paycheck. But once the feds start seeing forged documents and shell companies in his reports, they'll pull him off the case fast." We got to work. Jace compiled the evidence. Time-stamped edits, video footage, metadata from the spreadsheet, even a scan of the label on the storage unit box Tobias moved. He dressed it all up like a legit internal leak, like some guilty conscience inside the fake nonprofit had come clean. Then he encrypted it, triple-layered it, and routed it through 5 different dead drops. The whole process took 7 hours. At 4:13 p.m., we hit send. At 4:18 p.m., Jace looked at me and said, "It's done. You're no longer the only story in town." I left the diner with a sense of calm I hadn't felt in weeks. Not relief, exactly, The war wasn't over, but it was the first time I'd felt like I was on offense instead of defense. Tobias wanted to bury me under the system I built. Now he'd have to explain why his fingerprints were all over it. And if the feds had even half a brain, they'd start asking why the guy yelling freeloader was the one sitting on 3 shell companies and a mystery laptop full of falsified books. I still had work to do. The fallout was coming. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the one getting evicted. 3 days later, I woke up to a headline. Local man under federal investigation for nonprofit fraud scheme. No names in the title, just a teaser, but I clicked it anyway. And there he was, Tobias, standing in front of a courthouse in yesterday's clothes, trying very hard not to look directly into the news cameras. The article was light on details: ongoing investigation, alleged misuse of charitable funds, connections to shell companies operating out of state, but it didn't need to spell it out. The feds were circling. Jace texted me 2 words: bingo, game. It wasn't over, not yet, but the tides had turned. And Tobias, he wasn't built for deep water. Later that afternoon, I got a voicemail from Savannah. No yelling, no crying.
Just exhausted silence for a full 10 seconds, then, "I don't know what you did, but Tobias is blaming you now." Then she hung up. I laughed. Not because it was funny, it wasn't, but because it was predictable. Tobias didn't just want to get away clean, he wanted me ruined. If he was going down, he was going to drag me with him. Only now, I had the receipts. His receipts. I made one more move. I sent a sanitized version of the whistleblower packet to Savannah's email. No explanation, no greeting, just the file. I wanted her to see it, not the story Tobias told, the truth, how her own brother had used the system I built, the one she called freeloading, to run an actual scheme behind her back, how he altered the records, how he moved the money, how he turned my quiet work into a liability. I wanted her to feel it, the weight of it, the betrayal, the irony. She called 20 minutes later. I let it ring. 30 minutes after that, a text. "Why didn't you tell me it was him? Why didn't you warn me?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed, "You believed I was the freeloader. He threw you a hot dog and you laughed. Maybe ask yourself why that made more sense than me being the one who was helping." She didn't reply, and I didn't expect her to. That night, Tobias made a statement to the press, said he was being targeted, said the documents were forged, said someone with a grudge had fabricated the entire scheme to retaliate for a personal family dispute. I couldn't stop smiling, because everything he said was just close enough to the truth to sound like a lie. And the feds? They had already stopped knocking on my door. Not because I was suddenly invisible, but because Tobias had given them a much juicier one, and because my anonymous packet gave them a reason to look somewhere else without having to admit they ever had the wrong guy in the first place. Tobias was arrested 2 weeks later. Wire fraud, falsifying financial records, misusing nonprofit structures, the full buffet. His mugshot made the evening news. No hot dogs this time, just a cheap shirt and the blank stare of a man who thought he was too clever to get caught. Savannah never called again. Janet sent one last text. "I hope you're proud of yourself." I didn't reply. Because yeah, I was. Not because I'd ruined anything, but because I finally stepped out of the role they wrote for me. The burden, the disappointment, the freeloader. And when I stopped carrying everyone, they all realized how heavy life actually was without me. Jace helped me lock everything down after that. New VPNs, rerouted aliases, we wiped every trace of the old systems and left Tobias's mess to rot in public view. 2 days after the arrest, my dad called again. This time, I answered. He didn't try to explain the 19 years. Not yet. He just said, very quietly, "They came back to me after you didn't bite, after Tobias did." "Who's they?" I asked. A pause. A long one. "People who don't put names in writing," he said. "I told you the truth the only way I knew how. I'm sorry it took a threat to make me show up." I should have had something sharp to say.
something clean and final. But all I said was, "I'm not going back." "I know. That might be the first smart thing you've ever done." Then he hung up before I could ask the questions I'd carried since I was 13. The funny thing is, Savannah kept the house. I don't know how. Some emergency program kicked in after Tobias's assets got frozen, and with enough tears and pleading, she found a way to scrape together a rescue plan. Elena moved in with her. I guess the rent was finally too much. Janet sold her car. I watched it all from a distance, never close, never involved, like someone watching an old house fall down in slow motion, not because of sabotage, but because no one remembered how to maintain it. I moved again. Different city, different skyline.
Got a place with no history, no ghosts. I work, I lift, I read. I keep my systems clean and my life even cleaner. Sometimes people ask about my family. I just say it's complicated. And when I'm alone, sometimes I still look at that photo. The banner, the party, the box in my arms. Goodbye, freeloader, don't come back. It was meant as an insult. Now, it's a promise I'm proud to keep.